All right, welcome back. Another conversation right here in Mississauga. You know, it's beautiful. I love it. This summer was fantastic. Again, going and about, meeting new people. I was at the Meta Expo, first time there, and amazing people. You know, uh, and there I am walking from one stall, kiosk, call it what you want, and then I see this uh, uh, display, and something caught my eyes. I don't know if it was your display, David, but something caught my eye, and it said MACE method, and I'm always inquiring about what is possible for us to have a better opportunity in life. And at that time, you were so busy at your kiosk that I was speaking to your assistant, Goran, and I'm like, hey, I would love to have David come on. And so before we get started, David, I just want to welcome you to Conversations with B and Keeping It Real.
Keeping it real. I love that name. Thank you, Benu. I'm so glad to be here. And I'm glad
Yeah,
you found my kiosk. I'm glad, don't call it a stall, although it feels like a stall when you're at the Meta Expo.
yeah. Is it your? Have you been there many times before, David? Or
I have. I have a friend, and he was beside me. You might not have noticed him, but we were actually in the same double stall.
oh, okay. Was
And
it
his name,
the older gentleman on the right side?
that's right. He's
Your left.
82
Yeah.
years old. His name is David John. I call him no, David John Sinclair. His last name's always kind of moving around, but Uh, he's 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 the guy that was doing he was he ran the traveling psychic fairs that traveled around Canada from the East Coast to Ontario, West Coast, all the provinces. He was the guy that was doing it before it became normal now to see these fairs traveling around.
Really?
So yeah, so he's he calls himself on his business card and on on his at his stall, uh, Canada's oldest professional psychic. Maybe that's not 100% true, but certainly one of the oldest professional still working psychics, and and had really overseen kind of the probably the birth of this traveling psychic show thing where they went from coast to coast. They would go from one city to the next each weekend and set up in a new location and sort of breaking ground and all that stuff. So he was the guy, and this was back way before I met him. Anyway, yeah. So he's and he sort of got me into. I mean, I was always interested in esoteric kind of stuff growing up. When I was a kid, like I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I also, when I let me say it like this: like when I was 13, I was given on my 13th birthday a Super 8 movie camera, and that would be 1981, I think. So that was like a dream come true to get a movie camera to make movies, right? And then the other thing was I think the same year or maybe the year before I bought my first tarot deck. So those were my,
Really?
yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
and I didn't have any, like in my family, I didn't have any, I had no brothers or sisters, and my mom primarily raised me. So it was kind of me just having a real interest in this sort of thing. And I wanted to do palmistry. And I used to go to the libraries. We moved around a lot. My childhood was kind of disruptive. So going from, moving every 9 months kind of thing. But I was going to all the libraries, and I just wanted to learn palmistry, but I just couldn't understand it. It was so complicated. So anyway, when I finally met David, I actually and that was maybe 5 years ago. I actually, because he's a palm reader and a tarot card reader, I actually said, "Oh, okay, well maybe I can start learning this palmistry thing." So I he sort of kind of inspired me, and so that's how I got into palmistry and doing the shows with him. The Meta Expo, we were doing them. They do them 3 times a year, and part of that was just helping him set up, because he was helping the guy organizing it, for the psychic side of stuff, because they have two sides. They got the crystal side, and then they got the psychic side. And the psychic side is they have to have these curtains behind them. So he has these old curtains that he's been using for centuries. They're really old, and the poles are really old, and they're real hell to put together. It's really like it's a nightmare. But anyway, helping him set it all up, and so and
Isn't
also
that what they
doing
call in the movie industry the gopher? The gopher? You were like the gopher? Is that?
well, I was a gopher. I was a gopher. I had to listen to him because he talks a lot, and put up with every whim and everything that the spirit inspires him to change about the curtains. The rows should go this way. Now they should go this way. Whatever. But also doing readings, and so having my own little booth there and actually doing readings as well. So a bit of both.
So how many years have you been working along beside
Well,
David?
alongside David, probably about 5 years now. But
Wow.
I mean, there was a nice lady in where I'm from who had a metaphysical store in the city where I live. So I was able to. She Goran introduced me to her, and it's called the Bent Willow, and it was in Oshawa, and I started doing readings there. So in a way, she and Goran as well also kind of encouraged me. I was doing the tarot card readings for and meditating for many 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 years, but I just never did it professionally. I just didn't. I was more interested in the movie side of stuff. So
Yeah. Talking
it's
about
funny how you
movies.
fall. It's funny how you fall into things and how things shift in your life. It happens.
And you know what? I think they all have meaning, David. There's a reason why they do, don't they? You
Yeah,
know?
I think they do. I think we go through phases in our life, and shifts occur, and you have to sort of be able to, some people maybe not so much, but many people do, and you have to be able to ride the waves and see and and be able to adjust and
Surrender. Like I find that for many people, like I know there was a time for me where, just like what you said, try to go with the flow, and but then there's a part of us, when I was much younger, where it was just like I didn't want to, like I felt like I was giving something up. I didn't know how to sort of just let go, you know?
letting go is hard sometimes, eh?
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah, that's one great thing about the MACE Energy Method is it kind of, I think, I know we're going to get into it, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are able to, when they do the session with MACE Energy Method practitioner, they're able to let go of some of that baggage that they sometimes it's stuff that they've carried for decades of their life.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that. Let me just let our listeners know some of the things that you've been up to and what you're involved in. So,
Sure.
David Scott is a registered licensed MACE Energy Method practitioner. And speaking to David last week, he had mentioned that there's not that many actually MACE Energy Method practitioners in Ontario. And so this is like an almost like a new modality. We're going to find out what it is. He's also an indie filmmaker. I have lots of friends in the movie industry, a palmist, as you've just heard yourself, and a tarot card reader, and a regular daily mediator. Is that right? You mediate
Meditator.
or
Did I write
meditator?
meteor?
Sorry,
I'm
sorry.
not a mediator.
Meditation.
No,
Yeah,
I'm a meditator.
yeah. So, yeah, I wanted to jump into. We were just before we came on air. David, you and I were just talking about the movie industry and how during COVID, or actually right before COVID, I don't know if you had said it was your first indie or second.
It was my third.
Third, yeah. Let's talk
Yeah,
about your career,
my
and
film
we'll go
stuff.
with the conversation. We'll get into the healing method, and just to let our listeners know, I also had a session, like a whole session, and we're going to go over that, and I'll share my experiences, and David will also help explain it as well too. Yeah, movies. Let's go for it.
Awesome. Yeah, so movies. Yeah, so I did go into film. I went to film school uh in Toronto. That was kind of like in my life, that was kind of like a down point in my life. I kind of fell into a depression at that point. And I went into the whole psychiatric arm of the taking care of your health side of things. After that, because at that time we're talking, I guess, the early '90s, late '80s, early '90s. There wasn't a lot of stuff available. Like there seems to be a lot more now going on as far as other options for people who are suffering from, feelings of despair or depression or whatever. So at that time, though, I actually pulled out of. I did 1 year of film school, and then I dropped out. And then, but I ended up going to Toronto. I started going on a regular basis, and I trained hands on at. I don't know if I think it's still there. It was called Lift. It was like the liaison of independent filmmakers of Toronto, and I would go there and I trained on all the equipment, so you could train hands on. And back then, back in those days, there were no digital cameras. So we learned on real. We learned with real film that breaks when you're working with it, when you're editing it on these machines called moviolas that chew it up. Anyway, I learned how to film with a bigger camera than my Super 8 camera. I learned how to film with 16 millimeter camera. I learned how to use light, like real heavy lights, not the new LED lights. I learned how to edit using different types of editing equipment and record sound and all that. So yeah, so I kind of learned hands on, which was great for me. And then I made a short film, a 5 minute short film, and kind of did all the most of it. The only thing that at that time I couldn't do was the sound mixing, because back then you had to go to like a facility and pay them a lot of money to mix all the tracks you made, all the audio tracks. So it was 5 minutes long, and then I said, okay, well, if we can make a 5 minute movie, then why not? If you multiplied that so many times, you can make a feature film. So I actually ended up making a really low budget feature film. It was a gay drama this would be back in like early 2000s. And that was using like the old equipment. So you had to have a really, like, even though it was a small crew, you had to have like the whole crew. Everybody had to, you couldn't, no, nobody could just you couldn't just stick a microphone. You had to have like a boom
Oh yeah.
operator, and you had to have the guy working the reel to reel audio, and then you had, the whole thing. So it was very, very expensive way to make a movie. So anyway, after that film, which we got kind of a limited distribution for that in California. And that in those days it was video stores, and I worked in a video store, so I understood that side of things. I was like a manager of a video store, and so we got a limited distribution for that, and then it didn't really. It's hard to make money when you make independent films, right? Especially when you're making them yourself and you're making them on really, really low budgets. Even though you're working with really talented people who are really into it and trying to do a great job. So anyway, later on, I realized that, oh wow, there's this whole digital thing. So I was able to make another film, which I haven't released yet, another feature film, kind of a psychological horror film that's to do with depression and isolation, those kinds of things. And then I made a third film right after that, and I finished that in 2020, and that was kind of a conspiracy um, sci-fi thriller, kind of, but low, but very, very low budget. And so anyway, called Cult of Nightmares, and we got a distribution for that. But the world has changed so much from the day of the video stores, because now when you get a distribution deal, your film's going to go on to, like, Cult of Nightmares is on Apple iTunes, it's on Amazon, it's on other platforms. But because people, they don't want to rent movies anymore. You're not going to a video store to rent a movie. You're just trying to get, you're going to get a streaming service like Netflix or something, and you're going to watch your movies that way, because who can afford to be renting all these movies, right? With the digital world, it's changed so much. So to actually make any money in this system, it's very, very difficult.
It is difficult. If I can just jump in, when you said You worked at some of those video stores. Yes, once upon a time,
Hmm.
people actually used to go to a store like Walmart and rent a movie cassette. So when you were just mentioning that, Rogers Video came to mind, Blockbusters, Jumbo Video. I don't know if you remember Jumbo Video.
I do, because yeah, like
Free
we had
popcorn.
we had popcorn in our video store, and we were like the biggest one in the area. And then Jumbo came. I remember Jumbo coming,
Yeah,
and that was sort of really big. And then eventually it was Blockbuster, and then Blockbuster
yeah.
started to knock off all our competitors that were in the region around it. And then finally it kind of knocked out everybody. And then it went away, and then we got into the whole. Actually, the next step was then the letter. Was it? I forget the name of it.
Yeah,
Letterbox.
yeah. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and
That's right.
you could actually order your discs and then mail them to you.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that was like
Oh
the
yeah.
stepping stone to getting into the whole streaming and all that we now have now, which is the way it is now. So, but back then, back in the video store days, when you if you could get a movie out through even a low budget distributor, like we in the video store business, like we had to buy each of those units, right? So when you would go and rent a movie, say on the new release shelf, that movie was whatever we, $3.99 or whatever we charged, right? But for us, it was probably between $70 to, let's say, $100 per unit per video cassette.
Oh.
So that meant that if you got a movie release, that these video cassettes, if just take a small city, if even if they bought only one copy and there was, let's say, 20 stores in that city, well, the company's making money on that. And then you multiply the number of cities in, say, a province, and then you multiply the number of cities, and then you multiply the United States and all that, and so you can actually make some money, even with a really small, low budget film. Like our first film was like a really small, crappy company. But nowadays, it's changed so much that revenue stream isn't there anymore. So it's changed a lot. You really have to think about it if you're going to do independent now. It's very, very and of course, it's always depending on who you work with, like who you get the deal with and what the deal is and all these kinds of things.
No, it's true, and there's a lot of work involved. Even before getting on set. I have a friend. He's I think, is it DOP, director of photography,
Yeah,
and he tells me, and so the things that he has to do, and it's like wow. I've dabbed also into the movie industry a little bit.
oh yeah,
Yeah, but nothing major. Try to just short independent films way back
yeah,
in the day. Um, and just to jump on, or not jump on, but you had mentioned a little bit about you produced three movies.
yeah,
Were those three movies of interest to you? Was it part of your life story?
yeah,
Um, and have you seen you yourself mature with each of those movies? Because it is a reflection.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like I couldn't imagine making a movie, because in my case, it was coming up with the idea, writing the screenplay, uh, figuring out, like, finding the actors who can do it. You have to plan the whole thing out because you only have so much time and money. So you have to figure out, how am I going to shoot this thing? You have to be able to schedule it. So I was doing all of that. The DOP part of it, like the story, like storyboarding, drawing all your scenes before you film, so you know what you're doing when you go in there, working with the actors, and then you film it, so you're working with the crew and all that. So to be able to do, and then for me, then it goes into the editing process. So I would go and I would actually spend, like, I think on the first film it was 2 years of editing, because just trying to do it, it's just, in that case, I think we couldn't do the mechanical editing anymore because of the cost of it. So I ended up exploring and trying out digital editing. I think I was using a really early version of Adobe's software that you had to get like you had to get it on a disc or something.
Wow.
So I was like up against a wall, and I had to, well, how am I going to get this thing edited? Okay, so we're going to have to do it on a computer. So we got a computer and tried to figure it out. And so I was able to, and we were able to do it. But if you're going to do all that and you're going to spend 2 or 3 years, like the last one was probably 3 years, like from conception to finishing it. And a lot of it in my case was working alone, right? Doing all the sound effects, doing, the music for it, the color grading, the special effects, because now you can do a lot with digital. Of course, now AI does a lot of it for you, but I was doing it kind of myself. So when to do all that, you have to really be invested in it. You have to be passionate about what you're doing because you'll never survive. It's like a marriage or something. It's a real big deal. So for me, it was really each story, each one that I worked on was very personal and kind of came from something that I wanted to tell. Something I wanted to explore. Right.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in you sharing what you just did with your part, David, being part of the movie industry, coming up and doing all the work.
Now, one thing though, I was an
Yeah.
outsider, so I wasn't like the first film we were able to work with actors because we had a special deal with Actra, but
Okay.
Actra even told me, they said, I don't know how you got this deal. So
Hey, good
it
for
was,
you.
but like the other two, the two after that, I was completely independent, so it was completely outside the industry.
Okay.
So
Eh,
I mean,
It's a lot.
meaning that you're working with people that want to be in the industry, and some of them like um, some of them are in the industry now.
Yeah.
But anyway, they all were passionate and all very wonderful to work with, and I just loved being with all of them. It was really really nice.
Yeah, you learn a lot. I was just speaking to another friend of mine just this past weekend, and she's also in the industry as well. And she had mentioned that when she got into it, there was this like high, this like, time freezes almost, and it's just like, oh, I got here like 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's 7 p.m. right now, and it's just, and I go, I remember that feeling because you're so in it, and
Yeah,
yeah, I guess
it's
with all
wonderful.
the commitments you've made in those movies, it must have been same for you.
Yeah, they're all timeless in some way.
Yeah.
They all hold like some um, special place in my life, because they were all huge projects, and even though a lot of people would never have seen them, it doesn't matter if you can reach one person. That's one way. That's one thing you can tell yourself when you're
Yes.
working on this kind of thing. If you can reach one person and make a difference for them in their life, touch them some way, then that's certainly worth it. Because at the end of our lives, what do we really have anyway, right?
True
we
that.
just we just leave everything behind. So what's the you know so what's it really all about? So for me, yeah, it's about the process and the art of creating something, the passion of following a story or a message that's not 100%. It seems to come from the ether or whatever, like you're in some ways, I guess, you're channeling something, trying to get something out there that needs to be said, let's say. And then it's the process of trying to make something, bring it to the finish line. So it's also kind of like, in a way, it's like climbing a mountain, right? You're trying to reach that peak, you're trying to do something and actually accomplish something. So it's all of those things. And so of course, and then of course, working with people that bring things to life that you've written down on paper, and then after that you can never think of those names on a paper, the characters, as you can never think of them as what they were when you were thinking of them. They're always going to be those people that played them. So it's
Mm.
very magical.
It is magical. Just as you were speaking, I'm a big fan of the Lord of the Ring, the Hobbit series.
Right.
So I was just watching it just last night, and just as you were speaking, somebody to write that whole epic, that novel, and then for a team of people to sort of, create a board, the character, the clothing, the expression, and then finally, you see it on the big screen, but you don't see all the work that goes behind it. And what you
No,
just said was just so powerful because, for the people who are in it, it's part of you now, isn't it?
It is. It's like having a family. Like you just can't. You can never forget it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you're right about this. You're right about the set. Like when you're actually working together, it can be very very. There could be a lot of exhilaration and energy, and a lot of sometimes it can be stressful.
Yeah.
But whatever. Like it's. But you're working together. You're trying. Every day you get up and you try. You try as hard as you can, right? And you try to do it as in the best way you can, and sometimes you have to put the brakes on and sometimes you have to speed it up, but whatever it is, you just do it. And but you never forget those relationships in a way, because even though people move on in their lives and so on, it's still they've it's a very intimate. Creativity is a very, when people work together on something creative, it's very very intimate, because they're all sort of sharing in a vision, right? So it's very very special, very magical, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's a film or if it's whatever it is. If it's a creative project of some kind and you're working in it with a team, or what, and certainly if you're working by yourself as well, it's very magical, and it does definitely leave an indelible kind of memory.
Mm, the
Yeah.
memory. It
Hmm.
sure does. Memory. Talking about memory and listening to what you had said before, at a very young age, you got your first camera, tarot cards.
Yeah.
It seems like somewhere in the movie, as you were sort of going in and out in the movie industry, you said, you know what? I think there's a little bit more to me. And let's get into the MACE Energy Method. Like, how did that sort of come to be? Because the world has gone through a lot, David. I mean, look at COVID, right? You look
Hmm.
at the gaslighting. You look at one-sided stories. You see media involvement. And with a lot of the guests that I've had come on, David, it seems like, and I know I can say it for sure, it seems like there's been this spiritual war that's been taking place. The
Yeah.
good, the bad, the different world religions. In Hinduism, we call it Kali Yoga, where everything is at its lowest common denominator. Others will say, the Armageddon, and but it's all the same, David.
Hmm.
Somewhere in there, people are looking for answers to the body, the mind, the spirit, the healing. So it seems like in the last, I don't know, 6, 7 years, there's been a big change, or a development or growth in your abilities. So let's start there. Yeah. How did that all happen for you? How did it start?
The Mace Energy Method for me was, it's sort of it's interesting. Part of it was that I was, my partner Goran and I, we were going to Dave's store. He had a store on the Danforth, a psychic metaphysical shop. We call it Living Energy Spirits. We were going there and we were kind of participating in his dream, a lot of stuff that he was doing, and always trying. He was always trying to help people. He wasn't just doing readings. He was trying to help them with their health, trying to help them with their, getting their, like people have different kinds of problems, right? So he was really seemed to be really driven to do that. So we were kind of doing stuff like that as well, trying to help people out. And I was trying to figure out ways to help people. And the thing about I'm not bashing psychics, because obviously I am interested in palm reading and I do read tarot cards, but I feel a lot of times people go like say readers, we'll just call them, as a way of just having a sense of spirituality for themselves without actually doing it themselves. Like I said, you were saying I'm a mediator, or actually I'm a meditator, right? So meditating for me is like really important, and I try to do it kind of twice a day, and I've been doing it for since I did started doing the second movie. So it's like been, I don't know, 15, 13 or 15 years now, I don't know. So I feel like that's a huge part. Like for me, being connected to your sort of your bigger self, or like, or the source, or whatever you want to call it, is a huge part of how are you going to make it through this world, right? Like you said, like a lot of people are saying now, it's a spiritual war. So it's like you have to have some kind, for me anyway, you have to have some kind of a spiritual connection to that part of yourself that's always there, but you have to have it. So anyway, I I was trying to help. I was trying to find a way to help people to get a little taste of that, and to help them to help themselves through, because of what David was doing in his store, right? A little bit. And then another part of it was, and actually, I'll tell you a little story about me. So many years ago, I was on a lot of psychiatric medications, and I was, nowadays in Canada, marijuana is legal. I wasn't smoking very much marijuana, but if I smoked any marijuana, or I just wasn't very good for me, right? Because of all the medications I was on and everything. But I really had a hard time seeming to stop, being able to stop it. And I kind of wanted to. And I was going to, at that time, they had group counseling, and they had addictions counseling. And I really, like, actually, in a way, when I talk about it now, like, I think of my friends who do smoke weed, and I think I feel kind of like stupid saying it, because it wasn't really a lot of, for me, it wasn't really very much, but it was, in my world, it was too much. So anyway, all the therapy, all the talking about it, talk, it never really seemed to help. It just, I didn't stop. And then I met a counselor, and he said to me, I want you to write a letter to, I want you to write a letter to marijuana. And I said, oh, I'll do better than that. How about I write a story? Because, I was writing screenplays and stuff like that. So I started to write a story, and I wrote this short story, and then I wrote, it turned into a chapter of a book, right? So then I wrote one chapter, and then I started to write a second chapter, and then I just stopped. Now this story was really weird, because in it I was visualizing all kinds of stuff, because because I write screenplays, I'm very visual with the writing, right? So I was visualizing a lot of crazy things, like um, I think that the marijuana was made by a giant plant. Like the whole weed industry was made by this giant, monstrous plant in this factory, and it was this whole process. And
I
the
love it.
character in the story finds this factory where it's all happening, and all this kind of stuff. And it was very visual, and it was very much, I was following that visual story, right? And so anyway, by the second chapter, I just didn't feel like writing anymore. I didn't feel like going to see the counselor anymore. And I stopped smoking weed, and I stopped even wanting to drink. Just like that.
Wow.
After years of talking to this therapist, that therapist, addictions counseling, group therapies, nothing like those didn't really put a dent in it. But suddenly this little creative exercise where I could actually visualize and see stuff, and write it all down, suddenly I'm it's like I'm cured, and it's like I don't even care. It doesn't even, there's no interest in it. It's not, sure I could smoke it, I guess, or I could have a drink, but it's no longer controlling me. And I always thought to myself, what happened? Like, what was that? I tried so hard before that, doing all the right things, and suddenly this little thing fixed it, and it was almost like like a nothing burger. It just sort of happened, and that was it. So I always remembered that. And then I read, and this is like, we're only talking a few years ago. I read, I don't know if you've heard of a journalist in the States called John Rappaport. He writes about what he calls the medical cartel. So
The
stuff, I guess,
medical cartel. Okay.
yeah, he was talking, you're talking about
Yeah.
COVID, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
vaccines, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
He writes about, he focuses a lot on that stuff. He's an older reporter, independent reporter, and he had some stuff that he'd written, and he had an interview with a it was a hypnotist who had worked with all kinds of people, and he discovered that there was a way to really help people, and it involved what he called no, it wasn't hypnosis. It was that they were visualizing things. He would put them and they would just visualize, and he would let them follow their visuals and slow things down and have them go in close and this and that. And he described it as dehypnotizing themselves. He wasn't really hypnotizing them. He was more or less letting them visualize and use these images, and they were actually able to solve their problems. And they would in the now,
Mm,
and they would walk out of these sessions, and suddenly they were in, the problems had lifted. Yet, you know, all the years of doing hypnosis, it wasn't really having the same effect. So something was going on here. And I was thinking, okay, visual images,
mm,
what's going on here? And also because of my film work, like when you edit films and that's all you do day in, day out, you realize that a film is an illusion at 24 frames a second, right? Well, 24 frames for the films I was making. They're all still photographs. And so, it looks like it's real and it's moving, but it's really just an illusion. And it's very, very, for me, it's very, there's kind of a spiritual element to that. It's very like our lives are very visual, whether we know it or not. We're using our,
mm,
our minds are constantly spitting up images of everything we're thinking about, things we're worrying about tomorrow. If we're driving home, we think, "Oh my God, I got to go to the grocery store." You have an image of peanut butter, milk, bread. Like we're constantly seeing images. Even we're just hearing word. We see images of words, thoughts we're having, concepts. So there's something about all these images, right? There's something going on here. So anyway, that was sort of what I was the lead I was trying to follow. And then I read this guy's book. He'd done some podcasts. His name was Jerry Marzinski, and he had written a book called Journey into the Psychotic Mind, Breaking the Spell of the Ivory Tower. And he wrote this book with a woman named Sherry Sweeney, who had had a lot of traumatic events as a young girl. And and this guy Jerry Mazinski he's from Arizona, and he's a MACE practitioner, MACE Energy Method practitioner. And anyway, he worked for years in jails and in like high, really big institutions, with schizophrenic patients. Anyway, and he was talking about this MACE Energy Method thing and how he was finding very good results with it in a world um, where the psychiatric industry had kind of turned to just basically drugging people and leaving them to to
oh,
suffer. And I had experienced all that. I'd gone through a lot of that stuff myself in my life. Anyway, I was very it piqued my ears. It piqued my interest. I mean, and my ears pricked up. So anyway, I looked into this MACE Energy Method thing, and this was all the stuff is simultaneous, right? So I'm doing this thing with trying to help people with beyond the readings that I was doing, trying to help them to kind of get some sort of spiritual connection for themselves, and maybe to really help them actually start to move their move their issues, let's say, get them moving. And so, yeah, I looked into it and I thought, oh, this has got to be it. This is what I've been looking for. So it's kind of a weird
mm.
story, but that's kind of the quest to find the MACE Energy Method.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just as what you were just sharing, what stuck out for me was the visualization part. Everything it's a visual image, and I know we'll get into it. When I had some of the session, when I in the session, there
Yeah,
were images coming up.
yeah.
It's sort of like,
That's what we work with. We work with
yeah,
the images.
yeah, it's so fascinating. Like, kids, they daydream in class. It's like they're creating pictures, you know? And then those ideas or daydreaming turn into passions or dreams, or could it be the complete opposite? Hurt,
Right.
pain, suffering.
Memories of things that were
Yeah,
that traumas or whatever.
absolutely. Fascinating. So there you are. You hear about,
They're all images.
they
They're
are.
all one way or another, they're images.
They are. They are. Like, I look at myself where I am today, compare myself where I was maybe 15, 20 years ago. I used to do a lot more visualization and more visualing. It seemed like, somewhere as I become this adult that have I lost the image of visualization? You know what I mean? It's like kids, they're just always daydreaming, visualizing what's going to happen next. So here you are, you learn about this method.
Can I
Um,
just say something about that? That's really
yeah,
interesting what you said because, it's true. When we're young, we are just full of imagination and images, aren't we?
w-
But as we get older, it's almost like it's beaten out of us
it's been out of us
and life itself. You know what I mean?
and life. And then there's the good, there's the memories that we choose to recreate or
Yeah.
have, or that are part of us that are good. But then there's the opposite, the pain, the suffering, those images. And it takes us away. And then we become this slab of just concrete, just like zombies trying to live in this world, you know? Yeah,
So
yeah,
do you want to hear my elevator pitch for what the Mace Energy Method is?
yeah. Let's get into it. So
This,
yes,
and I always feel like an elevator pitch is kind of weak, so it kind of just gives you a sketch. The Mace Energy Method, a Mace Energy Method session guides you, so meaning you, your beingness, your the spiritual you, the bigger you, to the location of negative energy ridges that were created in moments of unexpected upset or trauma, and then through a process of natural dissipation or discretion of these ridges, the permanent result is that the triggers related to each of these ridges are gone. You free yourself of their hold over you, and this feeling is very liberating. So
mm,
that's my elevator pitch, and it's short because
it is
it
short.
doesn't really
Yes,
tell you much, but that's what an elevator pitch is.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's a part of me that wants to say, okay, David, cut. That wasn't too bad. We're gonna retake this, and this time, what I would like you to do is add a little bit more gusto, a little bit more passion.
Well, that's why we're doing a podcast because we have to talk about it. We have to flesh it out more.
Yeah, no, I
So
love it.
how have you been since you did so we did what we did was what we call a Mace Energy Method foundational session, which
Yeah,
is a 2 hour session and then a 45-minute follow up session. So it's like a two-parter thing. That's the whole foundational session, and we did that over. And usually we do that second part like a week later, which is what we did. So
yeah,
what did you find? What was the experience like for
yeah.
you?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I didn't know what to expect because it's the first time I'm hearing this. What this sort of reminded me a little bit about David um, is there's a book that I read years ago. It's called Sedona Method.
Okay.
And long story short, lawyer had cancer. I don't know if you read that book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by
No.
Robin Sharma. Okay,
No.
so he was a lawyer in the court system. Things weren't going well. Had a heart attack, and then the specialist said, "Well, you have less than a year left. You might as well get your affairs in order." And he was a spiritual fighter. He goes, "There has to be more to then like that's it, like a year." And then he started doing the inner work. And part of the Sedona method is accepting what is there, because sometimes what happens is there's this resistance that we try to push away. And the example that's coming in my head right now is like he shares, like, if you hold a pencil in your hand,
Hmm.
that's what we're holding on to inside. That's the image. There's a part of you, whatever that pain, that anger, the sadness is, that pencil. You choose to hold on to it. And in one of the
Hmm.
early exercises, he says, okay, can you now visualize whatever that pencil is and attach it to the emotion? And I don't remember what it was for me, and I'm holding on to it. And he goes, in that book, it says, or I think I was listening to an audiobook, cassettes. He goes, let it go, let it go. David, I didn't want to let go of that pencil because
Hmm.
that pencil was a reminder of my emotional pain, my grief that I was holding on to.
Hmm.
And as much as I wanted to let go, I didn't. And in that audio cassette, he goes, look, you have the power to let go. And then after about a minute or so, as much as I didn't want to, I was like, no, it's time to let it go. And then I released it,
Hmm.
and it was just euphoria. Like, for whatever reason, this emotional burden that I was holding on to, it dissipated. So this, in answering your question, it reminded me that there is so much in us, but that sometimes there are hangups, and we forget about these hangups. And when we go through the process, we let go. And when we let go, it's like a chain reaction.
Hmm.
One of my, I think, was um, passion for life. I think was, I don't remember, passion. One was relationships. Even though
Hmm.
we worked in these different areas, it's having a multiple of effect. Like
Okay.
like, when you drop a rock in a water, and then
A ripple
the,
effect.
the ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
And then I become the change in myself, and then I give permission for others to be themselves as well. So this whole process, at the end, I do remember mentioning to you, David, I feel like exhausted. I felt
Yeah.
like there was like a healing crisis, because I finally let go of everything. And the next day, I was elated. I was waking up early. I went to the gym. Something said, "Hey, let's go to the gym." And up to that point, it's like, oh, do I really have to go to the gym and work out? I wanted to, because my body appreciated it. And you helped me through visualization, and the support that you provided. It really made a huge difference. And then the follow up, if you remember, David, I go, yeah, David, it seemed like there was little bits that came back.
Yeah.
And then you said, oh, you had mentioned that you felt this, like, a little sadness, or and some type of healing crisis. And then we went further, and then we dived into that even more. And I was like, oh my God. And then afterwards, I'm like, I feel alive. I feel good. And I remember saying to you, David, I can't wait to see what happens, because the work has been done. And
Yeah.
since then, it's just been on the up and up and up. So,
Oh, that's great.
communication, talking to people. I don't have a six pack, and I haven't won the lottery yet. But again, it's just small. It's just those little small things. If you're aware of them, they start to shift around you, and people around you start acting differently as well. So the whole experience for me
That's great.
was wonderful.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear, Banu. Yeah, the ripple effect, eh?
Yeah.
And it ripples out. It ripples out into your relationships the way you were just describing. You find the people around you start to act different, to start responding differently to you because you're responding different to them. So it's quite a process.
It is a process. And then, before we get into the actual process,
Sure.
where was this Mace Energy? Like, who invented it? Like, who's this person?
John Mace.
John. Okay. Oh,
John
Mace.
Mace. He's no
Okay.
longer with us.
Okay.
Uh, as he would probably have said, he left his body
Yeah.
and moved on. But he was a ship's captain. He's Australian,
Australian.
and he was not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but he was very, very interested in philosophy and uh, how things worked. Obviously, if you're going to be a ship's captain, you have to understand things like electricity, magnetism. You have to be able to navigate. It's very material. Lots of energy concepts. Um, and he was probably like he's written a few books, and he wrote the one book that um, kind of sums up a lot of it is called Causism. If anyone's listening and they want to check out what he wrote about this whole Mace Energy Method, the book is called Causism, and he describes in the book kind of living a life that was very material minded, because I guess to be a ship's captain and to navigate the world like that, and to be, and they call it, like, I think he retired from that, and they call it a master mariner. I think that's what they call it in Australia. I don't know if that's the normal thing around the world, but anyway, you have to you have to understand very material things, right? You have to understand electricity and magnetism and all these things. You've got to be grounded in that, and he was. But then he had several experiences that kind of blew him out of the water, so to speak. And he, in some of these cases, he left his body, and he suddenly got a jarring sort of perspective on himself that was much different than what he how he thought the world works. That's the way I take it when I
So
read the
hold
book.
on. So are you saying he's having outer body experiences and then
Yeah,
he's
he
getting
describes in
downloads,
the
like getting downloads sort of thing?
he describes in the book like having left his body. Like I think one instance he was, it might have been with his brother. He got electrical shock and he left his body, and he suddenly was given a perspective much obviously much bigger and different than being here in the material physical body, right? And he was looking for something. He was looking for a way to help people, and he was and that's sort of what he got into, I guess. And so Mace has been around, like this method has been around for, like, I'm going to say maybe 20 years, maybe,
Wow.
but a lot of it's been in Australia, and now and so he came up with, he sort of discovered along the way, he discovered this technique, this process that we do. Every practitioner does this. We're all using the same foundational process here, and he discovered it, he and then he trained. He had a kind of right hand man named John Avery, good friend of his, who's still very much part of it. He's retired now. John's up in his 90s, but he's very much participates in the meetings and just sort of is always a wise, very wise man. And also Cherie Hatfield, who was my trainer, and she's sort of the head of the Causism Institute, and she is helping to oversee all the training of all these practitioners. So there's, like, I think I counted, there's 62 of us now in the world. There's two of us in Canada, me and Ian Cameron,
Just two in Canada.
only two.
So are you like East Coast and then the other
No,
person
we're
West
both
Coast?
in Ontario. So
Oh,
and so anyway, there's many in the U.S. I was talking about Jerry Marzinski. He's in Arizona, and they're in Europe as well. Um, but there's only 62 so far. Like working registered practitioners in the directory. When you go in on the Causism website, or you look up MACE Energy Method in the directory, you'll find 62 people around the world who are practicing currently. But there's new ones being trained. So, and it's several months of training. Like, we don't just do like a couple of weekend seminars and then
right. I was just going to say
we get
that.
our
Yeah.
Reiki diploma. It's actually it's really kind of a fun process. It's um, months of also, like, going through having mini sessions for yourself, because things trigger you as you're learning, right? In fact, the beginning of the training is all about the triggers of learning, because like, a lot of us have
Oh,
had bad experiences in
it's
school growing up, right?
true. Yeah.
So we have to, so as we're learning how to do this, we're learning the concepts behind all of this. How does this whole system work, the Mace Energy Method work? It's also called MEM. That's the acronym, Mace Energy Method, MEM. But as we're learning the concepts, and then we're learning the method itself, we're also having to deal with our own stuff that comes up. So we're also learning that way as well. So we're learning what it's like to be the client. And before we even start the training, we have to do the very same session that you did. We have to go through a foundational session before we even begin the training. So that's part of it
Can
as
I just
well.
jump in, David? Yeah, it was very interesting. The first session, I think you had alluded it to be the foundation.
Yeah.
It felt like you were setting up the foundation, like building a house. Okay, concrete, let's pour the concrete, the design of the house, but that's not what we were actually doing. You were sort of like letting my mind know this inner part. Okay, we're going to work together here, and this is what we are going to do. And and I felt like I was guiding myself for the second half to get ready and to tell my mind, all right, we're going to jump in now. That's what it felt like.
Awesome. Yeah. So part of the session is it's kind of like being to being, right? So we're both energetic beings, right? So we're kind of priming you, the client, to get into it, so that you know what we're doing. So there's a few concepts we have to always touch on to kind of get there. And one of the concepts that we always have to talk about with the MACE Energy Method is the concept. One of the key concepts is we're not just mind, body, and spirit. And I would just say spirit being part of anything in therapy is pretty novel when we're talking traditional therapy, right? And it's important. Like that's maybe a huge missing component is spirit. So we're not just mind, body, and spirit, but we're also identities. And these identities are a huge part of the process because as we talk about when we get into sessions with people, we talk about the fact that we have positive identities in life and we have these negative identities in life, and that it's actually in a MACE session where what we're helping the client to do is helping them discreate these negative identities. So we could talk about positive identities and negative identities if you want to. I can
Yeah, let's do
explain
it.
that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's the difference? Okay, so a positive identity is something you knowingly create for for like I'll just give you some examples. So let's just say you want to learn to drive a car, right? To learn to drive a car, it's a real process. When I first got in a car, I had a driving instructor. I didn't have my parents didn't teach me. And he said, "Okay, put your foot on the brake, put it in drive, and now now move the car." And it's like immediately you're thinking, "Okay, well, there's other cars, there's lines, there's a squirrel, there's people. What am I going to do? Oh, there's a yield sign, like all the signs, all the lights, and it takes a while to develop this positive driver identity, and you practice and you practice and you practice, and then one day you get in the car and you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to think about put your foot on the brake, put it in drive or reverse or any of that stuff. You don't. In fact, you can merge on the highway, be listening to the radio, singing the songs, and talking to the guy beside you. It's like you create this identity that you just step into, and there it is. And now you've got this driver identity, and it's a positive identity because it was something you created. You created it for, let's say, pro survival. You want to be able to get around or something. So it's a positive identity, and we create all, and that's what we are. Like if you think about somebody, a human being coming into this world, so you take on a physical body, and you're a little baby, wide open eyes, seeing all this crazy stuff, all these images around you, and then you slowly develop each of these skills and abilities, and then before you know it, you have a crawling identity, and then you have a walking identity, and obviously that sounds very basic, but a driver identity is pretty complicated. If you have any kind of a skill or skill set, you've had to develop that identity, and it's done consciously. That's the key. Um, Now you also have other roles in life, right, which are also identities. You also have identities like you might be you're a child, so you probably have a mother and you might have a mother and a father. You might have brothers and sisters, so you have identities like you have a brother identity, or you have a sister identity, or you have a best friend identity, or you have a boss identity. And when you go to work and you're the boss, you step into that identity, you step into that role. So we are just I think John Mace, he said a person is made up of, first of all, you're a spiritual being. So he called it an energy being, right? So
Mm,
that's the fundamental.
I love it.
And then you taking on a body, and that's the big heavy weight. That's probably the heavy piece. And then you got all these identities, all these personas that you've created, and you're a composite. A person is a composite of all of that stuff. So pretty complicated. So a negative identity is different than a positive identity because it's unknowingly created, first of all, and it's unknowingly created during a moment of emotional stress, like a trauma or an upset, right? That's what John Mace called them, upsets. Because one person's trauma might be another person's, oh, no big deal, but it doesn't matter. Whatever it was, if it upset you, then it matters, right? So during these moments of emotional stress, a feeling comes at you that you do not want to feel. And just to put that in perspective, like feelings, emotions are energy in motion. That's what an emotion is. So if feeling's coming at you, you don't want to feel it. So what do? You put up a wall, you resist it. And that resistance, John Mace, the way he described it, it was like two tectonic plates coming towards each other. The feeling you don't want to feel, and then that energy you're using to resist it. They're not going to move each other. And so those two plates, they come together and then they form a ridge. They just come together. It's like looking at a mountain ridge coming together, and all that crap, all the feelings and all the stuff trapped in there, that resisted feeling uh, kind of sits there in your psyche from there on out, and it's trapped. It was like the pencil you were talking about, holding
I
that
was just thinking
pencil.
the same thing. Yeah.
So he described that's how he described it. So you create so it's an energetic ridge that stays in your psyche, and what happens is whenever let's say it was okay. I don't want to trigger anybody, but let's just say it was you were in at school and you were bullied in the playground. Like I'll use like kind of a simple example. So whenever you run into somebody that reminds you of that bully or a situation that reminds you of that bully, that old ridge that you felt, that ridge that was created in that moment when you were first experienced that trauma, gets re-triggered. It could be a different person. It could be your boss later on in life or whatever. It gets re-triggered. Every time that ridge gets re-triggered, you think of it just kind of swelling up and getting your energy, and suddenly you're feeling all those old feelings again. You don't know why. That's why and what happens is over time you kind of develop an identity around it, because you start to, like let's say you start to avoid certain types of people. It's like an identity, like a trait of an identity, avoiding certain types of people. Or you don't want to, or you stop going out socially. That could be something that happens to you. Or you don't want to work at your jobs anymore, because whenever you have a boss that bullies you or talks mean to you, you don't want to, you want to quit. Like these become traits of an identity that you've unknowingly created way back in the sandbox, and it's sort of playing out like an echo in your life, or like a skipping record, one of the old phonograph records, it keeps repeating itself. So that ridge, that energy ridge, is there. It's sort of in there, and it's playing out in your life, often it kind of in loops. And so what the Mace Energy Method is really good at is really good at finding those ridges. And we find them using upsets. So even if it's not the same upset as the original one, let's say, we can find it, and then we're able to help you to dissipate that identity, that ridge, right? And we can talk about the mind and how we use the images and that. But anyway, when you actually go through, if you think of it as like another analogy is that these ridges, or these identities, are like batteries in a car. Like a car battery, the car is what keeps the battery charged, right? So we keep these negative identities charged. We give them the charge, and they keeps them going, keeps them alive. So what Mace seems to be able to really help clients to do is it helps to take the charge out of that battery they've been dragging around in their life, and then the battery dies, and then it just like falls to the ground, and that's it. And it doesn't have any charge anymore. So suddenly you're looking at your life, and let's say you were bullied in the playground, and you had that boss and he bullied you, and then you had this, you had a spouse and they bullied you or whatever. Suddenly all of those things that were tied to it, it's like a chain. It's like you break the chain, and suddenly they just become events. They just become, or they're just people. Anyway, that's kind of an simplification, but that's the kind of basic concept behind what we're going after. We're trying to find those ridges, those negative identities that were created during a moment of emotional stress or trauma.
The beauty of this, the beauty of this method, David, is that it's not specific to, like, it can only treat this. It can treat a multiple of concerns, issues, beliefs, or childhood trauma. Like there's a huge what's the word I'm looking for? Um, what's the word? What's the word? The scope. It's not limited, but the scope is
No,
huge. It is huge. Um,
even physical stuff. Like there's lots and lots of cases from all the years of the practitioners and my own experience with
yeah,
clients where suddenly physical things that have been uh, bothering you for a long time. I'll just give you an example. Like I used to have a lot of migraines, and since I did my MACE training and that, I remember during one of my training sessions, I said, "Oh, that's related to my migraine." And anyway, I'm just really not getting the migraines anymore like I
that's
was.
amazing.
So there's lots of physical things that also that people report that they start getting better, and it takes time for the body to catch up,
It
but
does.
it's actually, yeah. And you're right about the scope, and that's the thing about the sessions is they're very, very comprehensive. They seem to kind of, they really are a foundation. They really do kind of cover a sort of a huge part of what a person might have been carrying with them in their life, and that we're able to really help the client to kind of to find all of these key ridges for them, and to actually take the charge out of them, take the charge of the batteries.
You say something, yeah, taking the charge out. And you know what? It's not like going to a shrink where I sit there and you're like, okay, shrink says, it reminds me of a scene. I forgot which movie it was. And the opening scene is it's at a psychiatric office, and the patient is lying on the bed, and it's a wide shot. And so you see the sofa and the patient is just talking, talking, talking.
Yeah,
And then the shrink opens the door and he walks in. You think that the shrink is already there, but the
yeah,
shrink walks in, and the patient has his eyes closed, and he sits down, and then the bell rings, and just the moment the phone bell rings, the doctor sits down, and the patient opens his eyes, and the patient and the client or the shrink goes, okay, well, I think for our next session we will continue on. So it's not this continual verbiage language that's taking place.
no, that's a huge part. You really hit the nail on that one. It's
Yeah,
very limited narrative.
that's what I loved about it.
We do not rehash traumatic events. In fact, John Mace very wisely realized that what happens is you end up re-triggering them, and then you leave the shrink's office, and you're reliving it, and you're suffering. So we don't do that. What we do is we just focus on the feeling. Whatever the feeling
Yes,
was, we were able to help you find the feeling, and that's it. And that's where we zero in. So you're not going to be reliving and rehashing and analyzing. And we're not analyzing. And that's another thing. We don't analyze anything.
I didn't feel like I was being analyzed. And you know what? There are some moments through the process you were just guiding me. Okay, Banu, what do you see? What do you feel? You didn't say, oh, what was happening? Why did you react this way? No, it was none of that. It was just more feeling and the charge behind it. And you were just guiding me through the questions.
I'm the tour guide. You're doing all the work. It's fantastic. It's fantastic because of all that. All of the things you're saying is the reason why it's such a great technique.
It is. Absolutely.
And you can get so much done, which theoretically, you can't do. If you're going to go to therapists and you're going to talk about each issue, it's going to take a very, very long time to even talk about each issue. But in this method, you're able to actually
True.
handle many, many things. You zero in on them.
You do, and that's why I said there's that ripple effect as well too, because you may be focusing on one idea, but then the chain reactions may scope into other parts of your life, from relationship to health and everything else. Just like how
Yeah,
you said you were working on something, and you're like, hey, that's why I'm getting headaches. You sort of mentioned that, right? You don't know
yeah,
how it's going to support you, but I
no,
just found it fascinating. Now, the question that I have is, when somebody goes through this process and gets the results they're looking for. Actually, there's two questions. I'm going to ask
sure.
the one that came to my head right now. Energy cannot be destroyed or created.
Hmm.
So I don't know if Mr. Mace talks about this. So, like you said, the ultimate goal is to get rid of that charge.
Yeah.
That charge can't be destroyed. How does the Mace method allow that charge, that energy, to become positive and move in the right direction? I don't know. I'm putting
So
you on the spot here. So,
no, it's okay. That's a good question. It's a great question. If you think about that concept of that feeling you don't want to feel, and you resist it, and then creating of a ridge or like a little mountain of stuff, all that stuff
resistance, all that. Yeah.
all stuck in your psyche. You're carrying it around in your energetic field. Let's say what Mace, what the Mace Energy Method does is we are able to, whenever you and maybe we should talk a little bit about the image because we were talking so much about that at the
Yes.
beginning. So what the thing is, whenever you so the mind, John Mace's feeling, opinion about the mind is that it's not what we've sort of been led to believe, that all the thoughts, and analysis, all those all the things that we've been attributing to the mind is actually you, the being. What the mind is all the mind does is it generates images, and images, imagining, imagery, pictures, thought, words. That's what the mind does. It spits up things to represent whatever you put your attention on.
Mm.
So whatever you focus on, if it's and in this session we say, like, close your eyes and think about an apple. And then I ask you, what color is it? And you tell me, and everybody tells me different stuff. Like, oh, it's red and green, or it's just green, or I just see a red ball or something, or whatever. Everybody's different. But whatever you put your attention on, your mind will create an image to represent it. So that's so when you put your attention on a feeling, even if it's a negative feeling, and you really really feel it, your mind will create images. And then what we're able to do is we're able to leverage your mind's ability to create an image to represent these negative thoughts and feelings. We're able to leverage it to then help you to just observe it as it is, and in a way, and sort of the image will get as big as it needs to get, as much of the energy that you've put into it all these years, let's say, and you're just observing it. That's all it is. And then eventually, when it gets so big, it can only start to get smaller, right? In other words, whatever was stuck in the now, you're now getting a concept of it in front, and with your eyes closed, you're getting a concept of it, and you're letting it actually do its thing, and you're not holding it down anymore. And then slowly it dissipates. It's like energy, right? It
Mm.
dissipates, and then finally the charge is gone. So that thing, we'll go back to the being bullied in the playground, that you've been holding on to for 30 years, you're finally in the moment getting to it, and you're actually allowing it to happen, and you're allowing yourself to experience it, but in a very very powerful way, because you're using this incredible thing, the mind, that we've so the images that we've so kind of like dismissed and forgotten about and don't think much about it, but yet it's such a huge part of who we are. We're using that spiritual thing, that great thing, the mind, to then to actually experience the feeling in that conceptual way, so that it finally, you can feel it, or watch it, observe it. You're just the passive observer, and then watch it dissipate until it's finally gone. And there's a little more to it than that. That's just kind of a
Yeah, there is more.
oversimplification,
Yeah.
but that's kind of what's happening. So in other words, you're actually getting to that feeling. You're finding it again, and now you're actually sort of dealing with it,
Yes.
and you're actually allowing it, rather than trying to compartmentalize it and hold it down and bury it under the carpet.
It's like you're giving space to it, and there's Part of the method is the differentiation, keeping a distance, and reminding yourself that you are seeing something that's not part of you.
Yeah, you're not identifying you because
You're
once
not,
you're
yeah,
seeing
that's
it,
right.
you're once you see an image, who's looking at it?
I'm
Well,
looking at it. Yeah.
I'm looking at the image, right? Well, if you're
Okay.
looking at it, if you're looking at an image, if you're looking at a picture on a wall, then it can't be you, right? You're looking
Yeah,
at it. It's not you.
that's right. And I remember going through that whole process, David, and I was like, oh my God. Just in your share, when you said the picture gets bigger, so I had a few areas that David said, "Hey, Bonnie, what do you want to focus on?" And I think I said, you know, uh, I don't remember everything that I said, but when you said, "Okay, you take me through the process, let the image come in front of you," I don't know if you noticed or not, David. Like I saw my image getting bigger and bigger right in front of me, and physically, like I'm moving my head up like this, so our listeners can't see. But my head is like, when there's somebody really tall and you look up at them, that's what I
Yeah.
was doing, and I'm like, and you're like, okay, feel it, and I'm just feeling it, and I felt like, oh my God, like what's happening here, like, and then the whole image, and then other things would flash, and imagery, and I'm like, hey David, this is happening. You're like, it doesn't matter what's there, just be present and know that it's you watching something, and then eventually it would minimize, and the energy behind it is released, and then at the end I'm either feeling euphoric, I feel neutral. You will ask me, how do you feel? Like, I'm feeling this way. You're like, that's your new identity. And like, it's just powerful, and I think that's where the energy then goes. It goes, oh, it was here, now let's move here. Like, it was just amazing.
Yeah, we such an important part of it is just checking with you because it's all your experience, right? So I can't see the image. Your eyes are closed and you're seeing whatever you're seeing. I can't see anything. So that's the amazing, beautiful part of it. You're seeing whatever's meaningful to you, right? So
Yeah.
my job is just to help you through it. And so once that you've worked on a part of it, then we check. We go back and we check, and then if there's anything, there might be some residual stuff going on, and we work with it. So it's a real process.
Yeah.
And then and you said the word neutral, like that's kind of where we're going, because what we don't want is, it's not about forgetting what's happened to you in your life, or forgetting the people in your life, because we deal with relationship issues as well in the foundational session. We do relationship repair section. It's not about forgetting and erasing erasing the people in your life. It's just about coming to a place where you're no longer reacting to things. You're not reacting to the people that upset you, or the situations that you remember. It's just that you're just kind of neutral. It's something that happened. I still remember it, but I'm no longer reacting. I'm just responding to it now. And then whatever that response, what we always say in the session, whatever the response is, it will be right for you, because it's the real you, and it's no
Yeah.
longer that identity that sort of got built up around all that crap that you've been carrying over that one particular, let's say, person in your life, or that incident when you were young, or whatever it is.
David, just as a follow up with what you just shared, going through the process afterwards, we spent some time together, almost probably like 3 hours, going through the whole process on two
Hmm.
different sessions. I felt like, you know what? They say that the goal is to basically not be dependent on a person or a modality of healing, or trying to sort of um, try to solve the same problem and getting the support. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, afterwards I felt like I can do this myself. Like, because you gave me the foundation, and I remember sitting in my car, I'm like, wait a second. If there's something that I'm holding on to, let's go through that process, and I think I can do it on my own. Does the MACE method allow that? Like, once you go through the foundation, have you experienced it yourself? Like you said, sometimes you did it. You caught your.
John Mace is really clear about that. That you need to work with a practitioner if you're doing the Mace. If
Oh,
you're doing the Mace Energy Method technique or
Yeah.
whatever. You need to, because and the reason is kind of not hard to it's not hard to grasp if you think about it. When you're in it and you're feeling all this negative stuff and all these traits are coming out and you're acting
Yeah.
irrationally and you're all these things are, or your mind is racing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's coming from you don't really even know where it's coming from originally. Like we're like that ridge that we were talking about. But you're acting out an identity that's not really you're not really in control of it, right? So think about yourself driving a car and like trying to fix your car while you're driving it. Trying to do a car repair. You can't do it. Like it's like you almost need
Mm.
the practitioner to sort of be there to just be on the outside to just sort of make sure that you're on track. So that part of it, he was pretty clear that you can't do it for yourself. But I think sort of in what you were saying there, there's another part of it, which is that in part of the process is you get a sense of yourself by the end of it, a kind of a bigger sense of yourself. And that part is really important because a lot of people they haven't had that experience, or they've forgotten that experience of having that bigger, like who we really are, who the real you underneath all the masks and the body and all that, having that sense of self, the real self, the energy being that's inside all of this, the observer, right? Having that really experience a sense of self is really part and part of the session that we get to, as we work through it, as we get to at the end. And that is really important because I think it actually, once you kind of get there and you experience that, then you really can kind of face your problems maybe in a new light. And like I said, a lot of people probably haven't had that experience, or they've really forgotten it.
Going through this method and you sort of being that post for me, you know, I wish the school system actually had these skills, these tools. Like you can see the exponential growth of a student if they're being affected some way or whatever the situation from bulliness or being
That
left
was
out.
that was John Mace's dream. He wanted,
Oh,
he wanted, he wants, and we're slowly but surely, he wants it in every school. You know what I mean? That's his dream. Like he's not here to see it happen. Let's say, but
yeah.
he's not here in the material universe, but somewhere I'm sure
He's listening in right now. He's like, "Hey,
he's
David,
listening in right
you're
now.
doing a good job. Keep going."
Yeah, that's his dream. Could you imagine,
Oh man,
if we were able to, like just kids, like you were saying, like kids getting bullied in
yeah,
school, or whatever's going on with their parents or whatever, just having because the great thing about it is the limited narrative aspect of the therapy is that you don't even have to really tell the details of what's going on. We just need the feeling,
that's right.
whatever, we're just working with that feeling, right? So it's very you keep all your personal stuff, like by the end of your session, like I don't really specifically know the people that you were working with, let's say, or the incident that you were dealing with. I just know that there was an event or there was a person or whatever. That, as a practitioner, that's all I get. But I'm able to help you find the feelings, and that's my job. So could you imagine if children were able to do that and they didn't have to describe everything that's going on in their home life, or describe everything that's going on in the playground, that they just don't want to speak about it, but we can get them to feel the feeling, and then we can go from there. And so it's very beautiful how we don't get into the whole narrative aspect, because that kind of gives you that privacy,
Yes,
and gives you that you still, but yet
autonomy. Yeah, so
you
that's
can still work with it though, and you can still make a difference. So
yeah.
that's another that would be, anyway, that was John Mace's dream. He wants it in every school, and
No, I think it just makes sense,
or
David.
having a
Like,
practitioner at every workplace. Like,
could you?
companies are always trying to
Yeah,
help their employee.
Employees.
They have help employee programs and this and that. But could you imagine if they were able to go and
Oh man.
have a session?
Oh, it's like you said, in the school system, in adult career options, it's usually the HR person, human resources. She or he has all the tools, and basically, like, they're like a different version of a psychiatrist. They just sit there like, okay, what happened? Da 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 da. But
Yeah,
going through this approach, David, like, I think it's fascinating. Like, even at school systems, right? It's like, we have guidance counselors, um, but having something like a practitioner who can sort of allow you to express those feelings without retelling the whole experience, it's mind blowing.
yeah. It's very and like I said, it's elegant, but it's simple.
Yes,
It's effective, but it doesn't. It's very not traditional therapy. Yet it works.
it does.
Uh, it addresses the spirit. There's a lot of practitioners in the U.S. that are religious people, so it fits everything. You don't have to be. You don't. John Mace kept it very. He kept it simple. He said energy being or energetic being, because he wanted to make sure that it could fit everybody's modality, right? Like you didn't have to be religious to do it. You don't have to be. If you're an atheist, you can do it. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It crosses all the borders, and yeah, and so but yet there are many practitioners in the United States who are, as far as I know, they're quite religious. Like they're the southern United States. So like and it works for they work with it. So it crosses all the borders. We don't have to worry about. You don't have to believe in anything. You really just have to believe in yourself and wanting to make a change for yourself. That's the prerequisite. You have a feeling, even if you don't even know necessarily what it is that's you're just not, something's a little off, or
Mm.
as long as you got something you're not happy with about yourself, some feeling or whatever it is, as long as you've got something that you want to change about yourself, if you've got that attitude and you're willing to try it out, then I highly recommend it to anybody. And I certainly highly recommend it before you decide to go down the route of psychiatry and medications and all that kind of stuff. If that's the road you might be thinking of going down, just give it a try. Um, and I just yeah, and yeah, it would be lovely, honestly, if we could have a practitioner in every school,
Yeah, job site, absolutely.
job sites.
Somebody who works with HR. Hey, look, there's someone that you can go to, and
Yeah.
they'll assist you. David, do you have, through the training that you went through some of the clients you worked with as well too, are there any shares or stories, breakthroughs that people have experienced that you can share
Um.
that come in mind? I'm sort of putting you on the spot here.
Yeah. No. I have a. Actually, let me just. I'm just. I guess I'm going to take a moment here.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Take a moment.
Well, I was just thinking of somebody because she was quite happy to give me a testimonial, and I thought it was pretty good, um, because she was coming from the perspective of, and I don't think she would mind me sharing this, just because, well, first of all, I'm not going to give you her last name, but she was even willing to talk to people about it, like to email her if anyone was interested in trying it out. So I thought maybe I could share with you her testimonial. Um, and the thing was that her name was Kelly. Her name is Kelly, and she came from the perspective of the kind of the new age world, right? So, she's trying all kinds of new age therapies and all that sort of thing. So this is what she said. This is Kelly. She's from Toronto. Before meeting David, I had already spent thousands of dollars in professional therapy and done various forms of healing, including psychotherapy, inner child healing, past life regression, energy healing, Reiki, sound healing, etc. Although therapy helped me understand things from an analytical and logical perspective, it could not help with the strong emotions that came with my past negative experiences. Other forms of energy healing did help to some degree, but none were as effective as MACE. Unlike other therapeutic methods, MEM, that's MACE Energy Method, was completely non invasive. Yet it allowed me to release deep seated traumas gently. The negative experiences from my past were like baggage that I carried and could not be rid of. After the session, I felt a sense of relief and lightness, as if the weight I was carrying had been lifted. The healing session was extremely comprehensive and released all the baggage and burdens in one session! Exclamation mark. That was truly impactful. What was truly impactful was that these emotions didn't come back after the session. When I recall those memories, I no longer feel triggered by them. It even healed a minor eating disorder that I've had for many years, which always surfaces during times of stress. So the reason why I read that was just because I think a lot of people try out a lot of stuff, and certainly like, Reiki and energy. I'm not saying that all of these things can't help in some way, but sometimes people, in Kelly's case anyway, she felt that she spent a lot of money and it hadn't actually moved the energy in a significant kind of lasting way. That's why, because I that's for me, like, because I go to a lot of these psychic fairs and these events, right? So I know a lot of times people are just kind of trapped in loops, and so I'm always hopeful that my clients, when I do a palm reading or whatever, I'm hopeful that I can get them to try the MACE method, because I feel like that will do more for them than, well, doing a palm reading is very fun and interesting, but I mean, it might make a more significant shift for them that I would love for them to experience. So I'm always trying to encourage them.
Just as you were speaking, like it's doing the inner work, right, David? Like you are
Mhm.
doing, you as the person, the the soul,
It's
the
you.
the energy, right? You're doing the work now.
Yeah,
So
you, the being behind you,
yeah,
the being, that's who you are. That's the real you. You're doing the work, and you want to do the work because, I mean, part of you knows that whatever these feelings are, that these negative thoughts or concepts or whatever you might have of yourself, in a way that they're not true, that they never really were true, and they never will be true. But yet you're holding on to them. So there's that part of you that knows that, hey, how do I get rid of this? Because it's not real.
yeah,
It's something I've identified with, but it's not the real me.
yeah,
So yeah, I totally agree with you. It's that part of you that you're doing the work. It's you're doing it. And the Mace Energy Method practitioners, we're the tour guide. We're there to help you to do it and experience it for yourself. That's why I wanted to do it, because that's the most important thing. That's the only way that these things really, really work. Because at the end of the day, even if you do therapy, like talk therapy, at the end of the day, you're doing the work anyway, right? It's you that
good
comes
point.
up with the revelations. It's you that comes up with the whatever it is that's going to shift for yourself. It's you. So, people can hold your hand and walk with you, in your life when things get rough, and that's important, to have support, right? Or to have other modalities you can try, like the things that Kelly was talking about, like Reiki and inner child work and all that. That stuff is important. But at the end of the day, if you're going to shift something, it's going to be you that does it. So anybody that's claiming that they're doing it, all the magic or whatever, I think you should hesitate before jumping on their bandwagon. And yeah, I hope I'm not going on and on, but that's
No,
no,
absolutely not. It just
it
helps to clarify.
it is you, because think about it. Whatever it is you go through in life, even if you're grieving and you're getting over a situation that's something you've lost or something, you're the one that has to walk the walk. You have to walk the path out of the dark forest into the clearing. One way or another, it's you. So this is what's so beautiful about MEM, the Mace Energy Method, is it's all about you and it's about your experience, and you know you better than anybody. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
And
Don't let anybody
we forget that sometimes, don't we?
don't let anybody expert all over you that they know you,
Yeah.
because they don't. They don't really know you, and you're taking on a fantastic, amazing life. It's incredible what you're doing. Each one of you who's listening to this. So you know you better than anybody. So anyway, it all starts with you and it all ends with you. And it all, if it's going to move or shift, it's going to be you who does it.
So true. David, do you find that those who come to you, is it like, psychotherapy where it's like many sessions, you're there for like 5 years, 4 years, or is there a minimum number of sessions? How does all that work?
Well, I
Like
think
in
when
my
you,
case, we had two, and for whatever I needed to
well,
discuss, it
it's
was
really,
perfect.
yeah, that's the one session, because the two parts is important, because we need that little extra week in
Yeah.
between to sort of finish it off. So, because, like you were saying, you were kind of worn out after the
Yeah,
first part. Not everybody experience, everybody's different, right?
that's right.
But yeah, everybody's different, so it can be something that you can always turn to whenever you let me just say it like this: when you do a foundational session, I find that it for a lot of people, it tends to kind of clear up a lot of stuff that they've been carrying. So it tends to be very effective at sort of letting go of, like Kelly was saying, letting go of the baggage that maybe you've been carrying for a long time. And so it's not a modality where you're just going for regular sessions, because it's nothing like regular therapy, right? You're not just going to keep talking and talking, and then next week you're going to talk about your sister, and next week you're going to talk about your fight with your sister that you just had after the first discussion about your sister, and then the next week you're going to talk about how you're not speaking to your sister anymore, and then you want to talk a little bit about your mom, but you don't have enough time, so you talk about your mom the next week, or
That's right.
whatever. It's not like that. So sure, you might have other sessions later if you want. If you
Yeah.
feel like you need kind of a cleanup or a tune-up or whatever you want to call it, or something's come up. Uh, I have a friend. She says some people, they say it's like peeling an onion. You peel an onion and there's always another layer. She says it's like peeling it's like opening a present. There's more wrapping underneath. You always find more layers of yourself to
It's true.
to to deal with. So I mean, sure, you could have more sessions, but the idea here is is to kind of help you clear up a lot of stuff in that foundational session, so that hopefully you can start to do pretty good on your own. And but yeah, I always tell my clients I'm always available for further sessions. That's for sure, because I want them to know that.
Yeah. As a, one of two practitioners here, both in Ontario,
Yeah.
um, like other modalities, or maybe not like other modalities, is there like a training process that the practitioners go through, like on a monthly basis, or like a meeting where all the practitioners get together, share ideas, new
Oh yeah.
approaches?
Yeah, we go through, like I said, we go through the training is like, it's like, it depends on your own pace, but I you have like 4 to 6 months of training, and we meet once a week during the training, so it's kind of like you experience life, you study,
Yeah.
you meet, and then you clear a lot of stuff that comes up because of the training,
Yeah.
and it's not like all crammed in.
No, no,
And
what I
it's not a
mean,
weekend. And then the other part is what you were asking
yeah.
about, is that we're constantly in contact. We have meetings. We meet every 2 weeks.
Wow.
Like all of us, not all. Well, because of time zones, we meet. It's mostly the Americans and the Canadians, and like we have a meeting, and then the Europeans have a separate meeting. I'd love to sit in on some of the European meetings just to meet the other practitioners there. But anyway, I meet a lot of the American ones,
Yeah.
and Ian here in Canada is a great guy. And so yeah, we meet, and we meet with the John Avery, like I said, who's John Mace's right hand man. Kind of was there with him during the development of the process. He attends all the meetings. He's a wonderful guy. I think he's 93, if I'm correct. I hope he
Wow.
does. Anyway, he's a great guy. He's retired now, but he's always there supporting us and always reminding us how happy John Mace would be to see that how we're kind of slowly growing. And Cherie Hatfield, who's my trainer, and she's the kind of the head of the Causism Institute. She's always there, and she's a fantastic lady. So and we're all there supporting each other. We're all asking questions. We're all sharing client situations. We're all helping each other to fine tune our method. And every time there's a problem or a situation that we need to figure out or to understand, or we need more understanding, we have that constant support. In fact, we call those meetings ripple effect, which is what the funny thing you were saying, that you were talking about the ripple effect. We call it that. So anyway, we have that, and we can always contact each other. And so we're not just we're kind of islands, I guess. We're off in our own islands in a way, but we're always in connection, and we can always and the support is there. And I didn't know that when I went through the training. I didn't know that was going to be a part of it, but that is a huge part of it, and I absolutely love that aspect of it. So
Oh, it's amazing.
yeah,
It's amazing. What else is happening with the MEM? Is there any new?
it's there's a practitioner in the States who I think is in one of her states. She's I don't know where she's at with that though. I haven't actually talked to her too much about. I haven't talked to her specifically about it, but I know she was doing a pilot program with the state to help people through a social program.
Mm,
So that's the kind of thing that we're hoping to get into more of, is those kinds of things, like where we can get into, uh, it still seems very new and unknown,
mm,
but that's why I'm having this conversation with you, is hoping that we can get the word out, because anyway, so yeah, like there's always attempts to try to keep uh, spreading it out, and the practitioners are spreading. Like there's no doubt about that, slowly but surely, because the training isn't, like I said, it's not a crash, bam, boom, 3 weekend. Now you got your diploma, and you can just do whatever. It's not like that. So, but it's growing and growing and growing, and like I said, it's in Europe. Um, Let me think here. I think
you
it's
mentioned
in
U.S.,
like Belgium.
Canada. Yeah.
It's in Belgium. It's in the Czech Republic. It's in France, Germany, Portugal, Spain, Sweden. It's in the UK. There are several practitioners in the UK. So it's slowly growing, and there are 22 practitioners in the US. One of them, Lori McLeod, she's in Texas. She's totally blind from birth. She's a practitioner. So here you have images. Somebody who's blind from birth working with images. I thought
Wow.
very fascinating to hear her describe her experience, because we as practitioners, we have to go through the process, right? And she was describing how she experiences images. I heard in one of the older meetings that I wasn't around, but we can listen to them. And she was describing how, hearing the sound of a train going by, feeling the rocks, the texture of the earth or the rocks beneath your feet. So we all have images, whether we know it or not. Even somebody who's blind has images.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And
Fascinating.
everybody comes at, all these practitioners all have very unique stories and very unique, come out from different perspectives. Like I was saying, I think one of us is a pastor or a minister. So I mean, like, so Jerry, like I was talking about Jerry Merzinski, he's all in the institutions, and he was in, psych wards and all that stuff. So he comes from that pathway. I know another one is in the U.S. They work with horses to help heal, helping children. They're healing modality with horses.
Right.
So everybody comes from a different path, but we're all connected by MACE Energy Method, by MEM.
Talking about connection, David. Um, what if somebody doesn't speak English? Um,
multiple languages.
Right. Can you do
Yeah.
this in any, like, I guess, are there,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I guess if those who are like, hey, this sounds very interesting, maybe I want to become a mace practitioner, and maybe English is not the first language.
Yeah. Yeah, we have, yeah, well, you can imagine, like, in Czech Republic,
That's right. That's right.
um, Spanish, like,
Belgium. Yeah.
Portugal, I think, the practitioner speaks Spanish. There's Spanish, yeah, Belgium, right? I know, I know we have a practitioner that's German, speaks German as well as English.
Mm.
And I know Lori, I was talking about Lori McLeod. I believe she even translated our, like what we work with, our kind of our MACE, the basic script that we work with. She translated it to Braille. So yeah, we're certainly expanding that aspect as well.
Wow. Braille.
Yeah. So
Braille.
so that future practitioners who don't have sight can actually learn them through they'll have something to work with. So I mean, yeah.
You know, David, that's the reason why I love doing this, these type of podcasts, because I become the student and I learn. And then there's this platform that allows others to get the support. The way I see it is, and I tell a lot of my listeners, or not my listeners, but the guests who come on, a lot of the guests that come on, they have a superpower modality healing. It could be A to Z. And it's like going to a candy store or a chocolate store. Today you feel like eating a Kit Kat. Tomorrow you want a coffee crisp. They all satisfy that sugar craving. It can either be a Kit Kat, Mr. Big, whatever it is, but they support. So doing this podcast with all the people that I've met, it's just a okay. Yes, MEM is for me. Like, it's going to work for me, or this modality, and I love just sharing this platform, and it's just great to hear. I'm so
Well,
happy.
it's wonderful what you're doing, Banu. Like um, and obviously you're looking, like just finding me at the Meta Expo.
Yeah,
Like your radar's out there. We're amazing beings. We're receivers and transmitters of energy and feelings and telepathy. So you're out there and you're pulling all these different ingredients or different ideas and concepts into a place for people. I think that's just amazing.
yeah. You know
Keep
what?
it up. Like
I
it's
appreciate that.
fantastic.
Yeah, I started this during COVID as well too, and I
You
felt
did,
that
eh?
a lot of people needed different options, alternatives to healing other than what was available. And when I
Hmm.
started, it was not only on health and wellness, David, but it was also on food, because I enjoy food. I'm a foodie. But what I found in the last year and a half, like, my niche is going to the holistic slash wellness, spirituality, body, mind, and connection. And
Right.
through that whole process, I've been able to connect with guests from all over the world, as far as Australia, Iceland, India, the UK, and just right here in our own backyard in
Yeah,
Ontario.
I listened to a couple of them, and they were really, and they were from. I think the one was from UK, and yeah,
Oh,
that's fantastic.
Nikki, I don't know if that's the one that
I'm
you're.
I'm not sure,
Oh,
but
okay.
honestly, that's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
David, this is fantastic work, and I'm going to add your show notes. In the show notes, I'm going to add your contact information, how people
great.
can get a hold of you. And again, if you feel like this is something that can support you, reach out to David. Absolutely. Anything
Yeah.
else you wanted to share, David, as we sort of come to an end here?
Um, yeah, sure. One thing John Mace said was um, we're energy beings. We live in an energy universe without time, and we're here having a material experience in a material universe. And then there's your universe that you create, right? And I just want to say, like, all of you who are listening, that you're creating your own universe here. We were talking about identities, all the identities you create, and some of them, yeah, sure, some of them might be negative, and they might be, uh, affecting you in a way that's not very positive. But just remember, that's not the real you. You come from the energy universe. You cannot, like Bennu said, you cannot be created or destroyed. You're forever. That's the real you. And you know it somewhere inside of you. You know that. Sometimes this game of life can be very tricky, but try to remember that. That's my, if I had something to say, I would just say that.
I can't trump that. That's just amazing, David. Like I feel like mic drop. Like that's it. It's done. The show is over. David, thanks for coming on, and definitely going to share
Thank
all
you.
your social handles to our show notes. So thanks for being here and sharing your message, David.
Thank you so much. Oh, one other thing I should say, maybe, I don't know when this is coming out, but I will be in Mississauga. This is Mississauga keeping it real, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be in Mississauga at the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 82, Front Street, on November 21st to 23rd for people if they want to have palm reading, have a have a reading with me. I'll be there at a psychic fair there, and but I'm very happy to talk about Mace. That's my main thing anyway. So I'm always about that. And Goran will be there, so he'll talk about it to you. But
Yeah,
anyway, yeah.
absolutely. This
Anybody who wants to reach out to me and they'd like to try it, I'd be just thrilled if you've got something you want to handle or whatever. And thank you so much, Benu. Like, I really appreciate it.
no, absolutely. No, it's an honor, and I love it. All right,
Thank you.
Dave. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.